Alright, Shalom Makim Shalom. Hey, Yabashim Al Shai, Brakatham to my dear brothers out there, you little amount of sisters, worshiping the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai in spirit and in truth. Our praises to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles over there at Great Millstone, and peace and mercy to the elect. Amen. Let's give all praises to the Lord. I'm able to do this lesson right here. It's going to be a little bit on the history of what was happening during the time of the Civil War. Matter of fact, the Spirit had me entitled it, Edomites Fighting for Power. The slaves were labeled contraband of war. And you're going to get, the what it means by contraband of war as we go through this lesson right here. Now, I was considering to myself how in school or wherever educational place you go to, they try to explain to you that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves in the thing that's called the Emancipation Proclamation. I was taught that in school. I remember growing up and we had a choice between being Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and we was doing plays. I remember that in elementary school. I remember I dressed up as Abraham Lincoln. I like the fact that his nickname was called Honest Abe. It was something about that made me choose Abraham Lincoln. I remember that going all the way back to 5th grade. And now that I'm older, now that the Spirit of the Lord has returned into earth, and us brethren, the real Israelites, the ones who suffered slavery and still is dealing with slavery, now that I'm older, you figure out what was the truth of the matter. Now, one of the brothers, the elder brother Rapah, has shared a quote by Abraham Lincoln. And this is what drove the whole lesson. In the quote by Abraham Lincoln, he clearly states that he was only fighting for the Union. He didn't care about the slaves. He didn't care if they were free. He didn't care if they were in slavery. All he cared about was the Union. And why isn't this portion of history told to us? But everybody think that Abraham Lincoln was just some righteous dude. If say for instance he was in a grocery store and he was the owner of a store, and you gave him $1 over, and you left out of the store and he realized you gave him $1 over, he will run out the store and say, "Hey man, you left your $1. You gave me too much money." And that's why he's called Honest Abe. I remember all those dark lies, those evil lies to make Esau look good. The Edomites, the self-proclaimed white man, are the Edomites. So in this, you'll find out that he wrote in response to a letter by Horace Greeley. And you're going to figure out who Horace Greeley is in a minute here. Okay? So, check this picture out real fast, man, just to drive that energy on you, man. When I seen this picture, I was like, wow, look at this picture right here. It shows like a shield mixed with all the things that Jake, in the middle right here, it's mixed with all the things that Jake had to slave for. Cotton, tobacco, sugar, weapons, tools, and you got an Edomite on one side of the shield, and you have a Jake with chains on the other side of the shield. Now, check this out. I didn't even look this word up because I'm so confident that when I read it to you, it's written in Spanish that I already know what it means. It sounds just like English. Now, this is a Spanish word. If I'm guessing at it, if it's correct, it says servitudo esto perpetuo. And when I seen that, it says off top, it says servitude is perpetual. Now, if I'm wrong, any brother out there that speaks Spanish, please correct me. But I didn't even want to look it up. That's how confident that I just want to just like say it with. Servitudo estu perpetuo. Servitude is perpetual. Well, Jeremiah 50 and 33 lines right up with that. It says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together." The children of Israel in this case represents the northern kingdom of Israel, the Latino and Native American tribes. And the children of Judah represents the southern kingdom of Israel, which is the Negro, Haitians, and West Indians. It says we were oppressed together over here in America, just as we was oppressed in the slavery during the time of Egypt, during the time of Moses. But now we're in America. The Negro Latinos and Native Americans is in America in slavery once again by the same oppressor. It says all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. They took us and refused to let us go. Still to this day, we're in servitudo esto perpetuo. I try to say it fast. Man, we in servitude, and it's been perpetual. It's been continual. That's what servitude means. All right? So, right here, contraband. The word contraband. All right? You're going to find out that the slaves were considered contraband of war. And you're going to figure out what it means. But right here in contraband, American Civil War. I got the highlighted part I'm going to read here. It says, in August 1861, the Union Army in the U.S. Congress determined that the U.S. would no longer return people who escaped slavery who went to the Union lines, but they were to be classified as contraband of war or captured enemy property. You see? Now you're going to find out why did they even pass the act of the contraband of war as we continue on further. So the slaves that made it up to the Union, whether the Union had embassies in the South, in Mississippi or wherever they was at, they set up camp and then the slaves made it there, or the slaves made it up north. You were considered enemy's property. That's the only reason why it was a justification for the Edomites to use that. To use that to make you slaves that made it up to them, to make you fight for them. We're going to get to it so you can hear what I'm saying. Now, this guy, Horace Greeley, we was looking at, where is it at? Here we go. Letter to Horace Greeley, okay? Who is Horace Greeley? I got it highlighted right here for you. It says Horace Greeley was an American newspaper editor and publisher who was the founder and editor of the New York Tribune. Okay, so the New York Tribune, he created a paper called the New York Tribune. Horace Greeley. And Abraham Lincoln wrote a response to one of his newspapers. Because at the time, Horace Greeley had the New York Tribune, which was the #1 newspaper from 18. We're going to read it right here. I typed in the New York Tribune, and I got the highlighted part in the Wikipedia. It says from the 1840s through the 1860s, it was the dominant newspaper, first of the American Whig Party, then the Republican Party. The parties achieved a circulation of approximately 200,000 in 1850s, making it the largest daily newspaper in New York City at the time, helping to shape national opinion. So this guy had the #1 newspaper, and that's why Abraham Lincoln addressed this guy. So why is this even important? Because when he addressed Horace Greeley in the New York Tribune, he spoke what he really was, what was his thoughts on the slaves and the Union and everything of sort. And then you start seeing that Abraham Lincoln was nothing but a devil. He was an Edomite. It was for the power. It was for the war over. It was over the power over what Edomite is going to have the power. Basically, it was a split between the two. The southern Edomites and the northern Edomites. The Confederacy, which is the southern Edomites, and the Union, which was the northern Edomites. It was a fight over power. What they thought how the slaves should be. Which we know that the Confederates or the Southerns, they want to treat the slaves like you see in the slavery movies. But that was the Confederacy and the Southerns. But the northern, the Union Edomites, they want to put Jake in at work. You know? In a fashion of under the United States, that organization that we are in today. Okay? But was it to free us, or was it to set us free and we go live a happy life ever after? No. Abraham Lincoln didn't care. All he cared about was that the Union had the power. That's it. Let's read this letter here. This is a letter to Horace Greeley. It says, written during the heart of the Civil War. This is one of Abraham Lincoln's most famous letters. Greeley, editor of the influential New York Tribune, had just addressed an editorial to Lincoln called The Prayer of 220 Millions, making demands and implying that Lincoln's administration lacked direction and resolve. So he was talking about Abraham Lincoln. He addressed him. Abraham Lincoln addressed him back. This is Executive Mansion, Washington, August 22, 1862. Hon Horace Greeley, dear sir, I have just read yours of the 19th, addressed to myself through the New York Tribune. Now this is Abraham Lincoln addressing him. I got the highlighted part. This is what he said. It says, I will save the Union. If there be those who would not save the Union unless they could at the same time save slavery, I do not agree with them. If there be those who would not save the Union unless they could not save the time, unless they could not at the same time destroy slavery, I do not agree with them. My paramount objective in this struggle is to save the Union. And it's not either to save or to destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do that. I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I will also do that. What I do about slavery and the colored race, I do because I believe it helps to save the Union. And what I forbear because I do not believe it will help to save the Union. You see that right there? The whole Emancipation Proclamation wasn't about the care of you Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans getting your back whipped, getting shot on a plantation, getting treated less than a man, getting your wives raped, getting your family separated. Abraham Lincoln didn't care about none of that. He cared about the Union. He cared about the Edomites' power in the Union. And if it meant that certain slaves get saved, that's cool with him, long as the Union is good. If it means that if the Union could be good and slaves would still have to be slaves, he don't care, long as the Union was good. So this whole little thing about Abraham Lincoln being this upstanding dude is off. He's a devil too. You know? Let's read this right here in the book of Ecclesiasticus, 13:3. It says, the rich man have done wrong, and yet he threatened withal. The poor is wronged, and he must entreat also. If thou be for his profit, he will use thee. But if thou have nothing, he will forsake thee. It was a profit for Abraham Lincoln to use the Emancipation Proclamation. It was a profit for him towards the Union. It says he will use thee. But if thou have nothing, he will forsake thee. If thou have anything, he will live with thee. Yea, he will make thee bear and will not be sorry for it. Abraham Lincoln used them slaves that ran to the Union lines and was taken in as contrabands of war. He used them for his war. Another body for him. Put that helmet on, nigger. Put the helmet on. Put this musket gun in your hand and go fight my war. And if you weren't suitable for war, see, this is the part they be leaving out. If you wasn't suitable for war when they examined you, as we seen in the movie Emancipation starring Will Smith, if you weren't suitable for war, you were made a slave to the Union work. Oh, they said that's what happened to you. Yes, you were made doctors, nurses, whatever they needed you for. So this wasn't a thing of freeing nobody, man. It goes on further to say, if thou have anything, he will live with thee. Yea, he will make thee bear and be not sorry for it. If he have need of thee, he will deceive thee and smile upon thee and put thee in hope. He will speak thee fair and say, what wantest thou? That's what they were doing. The Union was speaking fairly to Jake, putting Jake in hope. When I was reading this, I kept thinking about in the movie how Will Smith was saying, Lincoln, Lincoln. I was like, man, what the freak, man? He was like, I want to go Lincoln. I want to talk to Lincoln. Lincoln, my friend. Lincoln. That's what he was saying, man. The character was in hope. The Union spoke fairly to Jake. And Jake, wanting to get out of that oppressive state under the Southern Confederacy, they was running to the Union. But we're going to read about the Union, man. Okay? They was running to the North, or running to the lines of the Union. It says, if he have need of thee, he will deceive thee and smile upon thee and put thee in hope and will speak thee fair and say, what wantest thou? Jake would say, I want to be free. I want my family. Well, Esau would say, well, fighting this war. It says, and he will shame thee by his meats until he have drawn thee dry twice or thrice. And at the last he will laugh thee to scorn afterward. When he seeth thee, he will forsake thee and shake his head at thee. Here it is, Jake then fought in all these different wars, not just the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and all the wars of America. And Esau then dried us twice and thrice. And we looked at it still as 3/5 of a man still to this day. You see? Let's go right here to check this out by PBS. PBS. I'm gonna read a lot of this, brothers, but this right here, man. This is the history. These are the things that it takes for the Spirit of the Lord to be on you to be searching this type of stuff. It says the Civil War and Emancipation, 1861 to 1865. Okay? It says, on November 6th, 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States, an event that outraged southern states. The Republican Party had run on an anti-slavery platform, and many Southerners felt that there were no longer a place for them in the Union. So when the northern states, the Union states, when they started to switch around the laws considering slaves, when they started to do that, the southern states thought to themselves they have no longer a part of the Union. So then there became a split between the North and the South of East United States. It says on December 20, 1860, South Carolina seceded. They separated South Carolina. It says by February 1st, 1861, 6 more states, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas, had split from the Union. So these damn devils was fighting against each other. And it was over us. How we should be treated. The Union wanted to use us as factory workers and, to work to build their government. When the Southern slave owners want to use us for private ownership. If they want to have sex with our women, they could do that. We had to maintain their plantation, their property with a big house in the middle. They may have a barnyard. They may have a small business of a cotton field. That's what they want to use the slaves for. Personal servitude. While the Union want to use the slave for servitude towards the government. So when that was happening, the southern states got mad and split. It says the succeed states created the Confederate States of America and elected Jeffrey Davis as Mississippi senator as their provisional president. So they even gave them, the Southerns, when they split, they made their own president. It says in his inaugural address delivered on March 4th, 1861, Lincoln proclaimed that it was his duty to maintain the Union. He also declared that he had no intentions of ending slavery. Let me read that part again for you. He also declared that he had no intentions of ending slavery where it existed, or of repealing the fugitive slave law. He didn't want to end slavery. He didn't want to end an act that they passed called the Fugitive Slave Law. What is the Fugitive Slave Law? Oh my, let's read this right here. Because now, brothers and sisters, you're getting introduced to what was going on with this. And why, what happened to us during this time affects us today. This is all, like you read it and you get upset, man. Check out the Fugitive Slave Law. It says, passed on September 18th, 1850 by Congress. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was part of the Compromise of 1850. The act required that slaves be returned to their owners, even if they were in a free state. It says the act also made the federal government responsible for finding, returning, and trying escaped slaves. So Abraham Lincoln didn't want to get rid of that. He was with finding escaped slaves. There was a law to find them and be returned to their owners, even if they were in a free state. You see? He didn't want to end slavery. He didn't want to end that fugitive state law. You know? It says a position that horrified African Americans and their white allies. Lincoln's statement, however, did not satisfy the Confederacy. And on April 12th, they attacked Fort Sumter. So when Lincoln said that, look, man, we're trying to move a different way with our power. But at the same time, we're not trying to end slavery. And we're not trying to end the fugitive slave law. The Confederates, the men of the South, they still wasn't with it. So they did an attack. And this attack of Fort Sumter started the Civil War. It says they attacked Fort Sumter, a federal stronghold in Charleston, South Carolina. Federal troops returned the fire. The Civil War began. So there we go right there for you, man. These Edomites were fighting for power. And it was the power over how we should be treated. Us Israelites that was in slavery under them. Okay? The slaves. It says immediately following the attack, 4 more states, Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee, severed their ties from the Union. So the South started a lot of states start moving from the Union because they wasn't with how Lincoln wanted to take away their power they had over the slave. It says to retain the loyalty of the remaining border states, Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri, President Lincoln insists that war was not about slavery or black rights. It was a war to preserve the Union. You see? But in Abraham Lincoln preserving the Union, it was a threat to them southern states. So this damn devil Lincoln didn't care about us in slavery, bros and sisters, man. Don't let that whole little ideology is out of there. This was Edomites fighting for power in their own way. You know, it says his words were not simply aimed at the loyal southern states. However, most white northerners were not interested in. You know what? Let's jump down to the next paragraph. That's just a bunch of blah blah blah. It says there was an exception. There was an exception, however, African Americans. You know what? I'm sorry. It wasn't a bunch of blah blah blah. Let's read it. It says most white northerners were not interested in fighting to free slaves or in giving rights to black people. So you had men of the Union, they wasn't with fighting to free slaves. Okay? It says, for this reason, the government turned away African American volunteers who rushed to enlist. Lincoln upheld the laws barring blacks from the army, providing to northern whites that their race privilege would not be threatened. So at first, Abraham Lincoln wasn't even letting Jake into the army. You know? He would push them away because white privilege, them Edomites, them white people, they would felt like their freedom, their privilege was getting threatened by letting Jake into the war. You know? So Abraham Lincoln was like, okay, well, this war ain't about them anyway. Turn them away. Matter of fact, use the fugitive slave law and return them to their owner. JB, you thought it was just Emancipation Proclamation, we just live free the next day. No. This was a whole fight between these damn devils, and at first, we wasn't even allowed. The Jakes that thought they was getting free, they wasn't even allowed in the war. Their asses got returned back by Abraham Lincoln. They got returned back to their owners. It says there was an exception, however. African Americans had been working aboard naval vessels for years, and there was no reason that they should continue. Black sailors were therefore accepted into the U.S. Navy from the beginning of the war. Didn't we read? We just read to you right here in Sirach, Ecclesiasticus chapter 13, verse 4. It says, if thou be for his profit, he will use thee. So since Jake was good at dealing with naval vessels, Esau was like, okay, well, you could be in our war. So he was using us, man. That's what it was. It says, still, many African Americans wanted to join the fighting and continue to put pressure on the federal authorities. Even if Lincoln was not ready to admit it, blacks knew that this was a war against slavery. Some, however, rejected the idea of a fighting to preserve a union that had rejected them, which did not give them rights of citizens. It says the federal government had a harder time deciding what to do about the escaping slaves. So you had Jakes thinking that they could make it up north or make it to a Union line, wherever their army was set up, and they'll be freed. It became to the point where it was fleets of Jakes making it away from their slave owners. Right? Now check this paragraph out. It says the federal government had hard times deciding what to do with the escaping slaves, because there was no consistent federal policy regarding refuge. Individual commanders made their own decisions. Some put them to work in Union forces. Others wanted to return to their owners. Others wanted to return to... let me read that again. Others wanted to return them to their owners. So you had Edomites, generals that was making their own decisions at that point. They was like, well, shit, we could use these niggas. So they was put to work in a Union force. Some of the generals said, return them to their owner. It says, finally on August 6, 1861, fugitive slaves were declared to be contraband of war if their labor had been used to aid the Confederacy in any way. And if they're found to be contraband, they were declared free. So Esau came up with contrabands of war to make it to where he had power over that slave. Since this is how the northern would think, the northern Edomite, the Union, since your slave made it to me, your slave, your property is now in my jurisdiction. It's now with me. So now I got control over it because you are my enemy and I have your property. That's how they thought about that. So now Esau he was using us by putting us in his war if he wanted to, or putting you to work in a Union force. And you were free under contrabands of war. But really, you wasn't free. You was working for the Union. Still to this day, guess who we work for? The Union. The United States of America that's established right this day is under the mindset of the Union. So we're in slavery right now. Last time I checked. And we still contraband of war. You see? Now, let's continue on a little further here. It says, let me see how many I read here. Here we go. It says, as the Northern Army pushed southward, thousands of refugees fled across Union lines. Thousands of slaves fled across Union lines. It says, neither the federal authorities nor the armies were prepared for the flood of slaves. It says people, but it's slaves. It says, and many of the refugees suffered as a result. Many of the slaves suffered because it was too many of us fleeing up there. It says, though the government attempted to provide them with confiscated land, there was not enough to go around. Many slaves were put into crowded camps where starvation and disease led to high death rates. Northern citizens, black, white alike, stepped in to fill the gap. They organized relief societies and provided aid. They also organized schools to teach the freedmen, women, children to read and write, thus giving an education to thousands of African Americans throughout the war. Now, a simple-minded Jake may say, well, look at that. They gave us schooling. No, the reason why you got schooling is because you need to learn how to put together this bridge. You need to learn how to work amongst us. You need to know how to read and write so you can work. Because guess what we're gonna find out? You were made into doctors. Let's keep going. It's gonna tell you it. All right. It says, though contraband slaves have been declared free, Lincoln continued to enlist that this was a war to save the Union, not you niggas. It says, Lincoln continued to insist that this was a war to save the Union, not to free slaves. So throughout this whole time, from war, things going back and forth, the Southern saying something, the Northern saying something, the whole time, Abraham Lincoln was standing on his mindset of this is about saving the new union, not freeing slaves. Let's go right here to what's that let's go to Zechariah real quick. I think that's Zechariah 5 and 11. Zechariah chapter 5. Was it 11 and 5? Zechariah 11 and 5. It says, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Esau have gotten rich off of us, man. Like Abraham Lincoln said, he wanted to save the Union. That was to his prosperity. That was to him being rich. And he held it. He didn't feel guilty. He said, what did he say? This is not to free the slaves. Let's jump back. It says, but in 1862, Lincoln was considering emancipation as a necessary step towards winning the war. Emancipation was a necessary step towards winning the war. That's all it was about. It says the South was using enslaved people to aid the war effort. Black men and women were forced to build fortifications, work as blacksmiths, nurses, boatmen, and laundresses, to work in factories, hospitals, and armories. That's what the Union did with the slaves. So you need to learn how to read and write to be able to do all of that. And still to this day, Jake is working as nurses, blacksmiths, boatmen, laundress, in factories, hospitals, the army. It hasn't even changed. All that changes the times. This act on us is still the same on us. That's why Jake is... they think they free. Jake think they free right now. But this goes back to Abraham Lincoln wanting to save the Union. And the Union has become the United States that we live in today. And Jake is still working in these same plantations. Now it's in a hospital now. As a blacksmith now. Yo, man. It says, in the meantime, the North was refusing to accept the service of black volunteers and free slaves, the very people who most wanted to defeat the slaveholders. In addition, several governments in Europe were considering recognize the Confederacy in intervening against the Union. If Lincoln declared this war to free the slaves, European public opinion would overwhelmingly back the North. Okay? It says, this will be the last one I have here. You know what? I think that, let me see. That's pretty much, it hit the point, man. I hit the point. I don't want to make this too freaking long. You can continue that, man. That's on PBS. It gets even juicier as it go down, man. These devils, this was Edomites fighting Edomites. That's what it was about. It was them wanting to establish their own power. But the southern Edomites wasn't with what the northern Edomites was doing. That's it. Us Israelites being the slaves, the northern kingdom having the land took from them, the southern kingdom being brought over here on slave ships, we were just in the middle of their war. And they was using us as they will. Whoever, they was using us for their own personal gain. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 43. It says, the stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. The Edomites got very high over us, as we was just reading, and we went down very low, man. It says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. You see, we became last. Esau was the first. He was lending to us. Abraham Lincoln used lending to us to empower the Union. Verse 46 says, and they shall be upon thee. Verse 45, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, and thou shalt be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. That's why this happened to us. Because we was going off, man. We was getting toyed around with, like a hot potato. We were the hot potato. Man, because we went off with the scriptures, man. And that's why we returning now with all our heart, soul, and spirit. It says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemy, which the Lord shall send against thee, and hunger and thirst and nakedness and the want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he had destroyed thee. You see? So it was Yahweh Shemel Shai did this to us, man. But it's all good because now the tables is turning, man. And since Esau having hated blood, even blood gonna pursue this man. Okay? This is Ezekiel chapter 35, verse 5. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred. You've had a perpetual hatred. Now check this out. Remember earlier in the lesson, we was reading this caption on this picture. This is a picture by the Confederates. It says, servitudo estu perpetuo, which is servitude, slavery, is perpetual. Well, Ezekiel 35 said, Esau said in his mind, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred. He had a perpetual hatred, and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, and in the time of their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, thus saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Since you had that perpetual servitude, hatred towards us, and shed our blood, even that same energy is going to come back around to you. You reap what you sow, or what the world calls karma. It's coming right back around to you, Edomites. And we're going to toy with you. You're going to be the hot potato. We're going to toy with your life and your children. And your family. Alright? And you're going to become desolate. You're going to become low. You're going to become the tail. Thus saith Yahweh Shemel Shai, the God of the Bible, the God of Israel, the creator of the heavens and the earth, man. Revelations 13:9 says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. You Edomites are finished, man. You've lied you lie about everything. You lied about you lied about the history. You lied about what really happened with Abraham Lincoln. You've been just lying. You got Jake believing that Lincoln, my friend, Lincoln. You got Jake thinking that Lincoln is their friend. This nigga don't care about us. None of you Edomites care about us, man. And that's why y'all Shemel Shai, man. That's our God, and that's who we turn into. Forget you, forget your union, forget your confederacy, forget your United States. All of it is going up in flames and nuclear destruction during the time of World War III. And Yahweh Shemel Shai gonna deliver his people, man, from the hands of you devils, you demons. So with that, hey, brother and sisters, just hit everything in the spirit of the Lord, man. Hope that was edifying to you brothers and sisters. I thought this was, like, man, and I had to share it. So through the spirit of the Lord, I hope that was edifying to you, brethren. You brothers and sisters, stay strong out here, man. Hey, the Lord is back with us again, and hey, what better feeling is there, man? These Edomites they're going down. Yeah, so with that, hey, Yahweh Shemel Shai, Brakatham to you, brethren and sisters. Stay up. Shalom.